Uh-oh.
And we are live here on the beat, back a new season of On the Beat Live for the 2023-2024 UNC athletics season. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on YouTube and in podcast form. We have here tonight myself, John, we have Jeremiah, we have Adam, and we have new intern, Evan. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. Adam, I'm going to start with you to kick things off. How was your summer? Are you excited for a new season here of On the Beat Live?
I'm getting a bad situation here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Adam. We can hear you.
I'm getting it's like a double play. I don't know.
What's possible is you might be listening to the YouTube. So I've had that happen
You're
before.
right. That's what
You
I'm doing.
have the link open.
Okay. All right. We're back.
We are back.
Who's making the rookie mistakes here? It's not Evan. It's the old dude. This is what I get. Is this a sign of like early onset Alzheimer's or dementia or something? I mean,
we wouldn't go that far.
Tabs open. It's like when you call the radio station and they're like, "Turn down your radio. We can hear." Unbelievable. Don't even come back to me. Got like text messages. People are mad at me here.
We need the mute button like in Around the Horn. Adam,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
you're in timeout. Jeremiah, how was your summer? Are you excited for the show to get back here?
My summer was good, man. Being back in the area, obviously, being able to do some work and also being able to kind of catch up with people, things like that. Summer's certainly over. It's game week, as they say. But yeah, I enjoyed it, man, and I'm ready to, get to rocking and getting to rolling as well.
Awesome. And Evan, joining us here for the first time on a podcast. Evan, how have your first few days, weeks at Inside Carolina been? And can you kind of introduce yourself to the group here?
Yeah, it's been great so far. My name's Evan Rogers. I'm guess the new kid around the block, the new intern with Inside Carolina. Currently a junior at UNC. Just finished up a summer where I had the privilege to be an intern with the Pro Football Hall of Fame out in Canton, Ohio, which was really cool. Got to do some really cool work, some cool research out in Ohio and to meet some cool people. This is now, going on week 3, I think, with Inside Carolina now, and it's been awesome. Adam and Jeremiah have really helped me hit the ground running, getting some articles up, and like Jeremiah said earlier, it's game week, and you can definitely feel a different kind of energy both within the Keenan Football Center and around campus with the game coming up this weekend, and just excited to be along for the ride with you guys.
I mean, let's be honest here. Jeremiah and Evan add much needed youth, handsomeness, great hair. It's like if it's the scales of justice, they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting here with my old decrepit butt. So, but if I could speak to Evan join us, he's been great. We were looking forward to having him. Mm-hmm. He said hit the ground running. He really has. Jeremiah and I have been putting him to work, and the guy's been working hard. This kid is going places. You know how we bring back some of the people that have starred for us in the past. We'll be bringing back Evan at some point. I'm sure we'll be bringing back Jeremiah too, to bless us with all the places they're headed. But we've loved having him. And our loyal listeners and audience here should know that Jeremiah and Evan have been busting their butt this camp. It's a grind for the writers too, and I think they've done a great job. So anyway, sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
I was going to say we should go ahead and take the intern label off of Evan right away. I mean, first radio hit, first podcast hit, he nailed it. So great job, Evan. I do, before we get into business here a little bit, I want to take a moment to just acknowledge everything that happened on campus yesterday. It was a really scary day for everyone involved in the Chapel Hill community. So we want everyone to know that our thoughts are with everyone, who was around campus, everything that happened yesterday. That's definitely been on everyone's minds, on Tommy's mind, who's not here tonight, but I know it was on his mind as well. So we're keeping that in mind tonight. As we're moving forward with the show, I think there's going to be some a bell tower ringing tomorrow on campus, and I think a vigil as well tomorrow night for that event. So we're keeping our thoughts and prayers with Chapel Hill at this time. There's no natural transition back into football, but we're going to get into business a little bit here. Talk about the UNC football season that's upcoming this weekend. Obviously, UNC plays South Carolina, but yesterday we had a press conference with Mack Brown, with Chip Lindsey, with Gene Chizik. I'm going to start off with you, Adam. From all those press conferences, and we know Mac likes to talk. I think it was 45 minutes yesterday. What was your
More than that.
number one biggest takeaway from the press conferences?
Jeez, just one. Yeah. Well, you knew. I mean, it seems like when you turn the corner into the first game week of the season, you know Mac is going to be ready to roll. And I mean, last year obviously there was a lot of, sort of excitement, holding of the breath. Will it be Drake May? Will it be Jacoby Criswell at quarterback? That was sort of what you had, on the bullseye that you were looking toward. And now with the Tez Walker situation, just all sorts of stuff going on. You knew that Mac would have plenty of topics to cover. I'm trying to think what my biggest takeaway was. We had Evan work on a story about, Chip Lindsey's getting ready to call his first game at UNC. Not that he hasn't called games in the past, but with all the different things that are happening around this team, it seems like, I don't know, that might be a little bit lost. Drake May has a new play caller. Phil Longo did pretty well with Sam Howell and Drake May. I don't know if that was my biggest takeaway. I thought it was interesting that Mac said this coaching staff has the fewest egos he's ever been around. I think you can interpret that a lot of different ways. I guess I would say my biggest takeaway was that Mac talking about egos that aren't there. And he said, with the Cedric Grays of the world, with the DJ Joneses, Drake Mays, British Brooks, that this might very well be the most unselfish team he's been around. He had a lot of most. Mac's been around a while. I think his 35th year as a head coach. But I thought those two things were pretty interesting.
Jeremiah, what about for you? What were some of your biggest takeaways from all the press conferences yesterday?
Certainly. I think one thing that's pressing and a lot of people are thinking about, and Adam did bring it up, what would life without Tez Walker potentially look like for UNC? Is Saturday the trial run of that? We're not sure. We haven't, the NCAA hasn't reinstated him. They haven't granted him that eligibility yet. But what could that potentially look like? I think that's a conversation you have to have now throughout camp. Or really the last few weeks, after the Tez Walker news was announced, they were pretty clear that they were prepared to have Tez week one. That was their whole thing. We're banking on him being there, things like that. Well, we're, 4 or 5 days away. There's still no news on that. So who do you look to? So naturally people were asking about that. Names that Mack Brown brought up were Kobe Paysour, obviously somebody that stepped up a lot when Josh Downs went down. If I have the numbers correct, it was 3 games where he had at least 5 catches and 70 yards. All of those games were games in which Josh Downs did not play. Then you have somebody like a J.J. Jones, who was 4th in receiving yards last season. His name came up. Andre Green's name came up as well. And so, those are some of the, younger guys that have a little bit of experience that you could potentially look to. I know throughout the season, Nate McCollum's the guy they're going to be looking for. That's why they brought him in there as well. But when it comes to Tez in particular, looking to kind of fill in the role of a number one. Oh, and also you do have someone like a Bryson Nesbitt who was actually 3rd in receiving yards last year, 3rd in catches and yards. He was the primary pass catching tight end that they had. They're obviously pretty deep in that tight end room as well. And then the depth chart came out yesterday, had George Pettaway out there in the slot. That's another option. It's not somebody that they're probably going to be looking to get a bunch of targets to, but it's just another way that they're going to be able to use him. So I think there's going to be options for Drake May to pass the ball too. It's just the dynamic of not having him out there. And then also from a kind of off-field standpoint, but, kind of related, Mack Brown was saying yesterday that, that Tez was struggling a little bit, with his confidence kind of in practice, and that's the mental aspect of that too. You're coming to North Carolina expecting to play, expecting to have this homecoming game, in Charlotte week 1, and now just a few days away from it, not sure if that is still going to happen. So we'll certainly have to see. I know that Lonnie Galloway and Mack Brown, as he said during the press conference, they're encouraging him to stay ready. They're encouraging him to be prepared for no matter what happens, to be able to just kind of go in and go. And so that's a situation we're continuing to monitor. But I thought that was interesting. Chip Lindsey has good things to say about Kobe Paysour as well. When I asked about what Kobe Paysour has been doing well, he said that Paysour has been improving a lot since even the time that he arrived in late fall, early spring. So I thought that was something that really stood out, because that's such an unknown, and as we get closer to game time, it's something that we'll have to continue to pay attention to.
Yeah, we're getting into this situation with Tez, which I thought we'd never reach this point. Where is there a possibility that Tez Walker is not declared eligible before the South Carolina game? He sits the South Carolina game, and then somehow he is declared eligible later in the season. I mean, to me, that is absurd, because the facts of this case are the facts. There's no investigation that needs to be done. There's no, I think the only thing that's holding this up, it feels like at this point, is administrative backlog, or perhaps Tez Walker potentially getting to speak his case in front of the NCAA committee. But there should be no scenario in which he misses a game or 2 or 3 because the NCAA is behind on their paperwork. That's the part that I think is really confusing to me. Adam, have you gotten a sense that, is that a possibility that he could be declared eligible later in the season, or what's your sense there?
Well, yeah, I don't want to leapfrog Evan, although I will if he tried to box me out. No, I mean, I think that this is the NCAA we're talking about here, right? I mean, we love it. We love them when they put on March Madness, but I think that this is yet another reason why people despise the NCAA, the hypocrisy of it. I'm sure if you're a UNC fan and you've looked at Storm Duck and Cam Kelly, who have transferred twice since December and are eligible. Of course, they're grad transfers, and that's a different entity. But that's part of the hair pulling. What I was going to say, John, is that the more we have learned about this, or the more that you hear about this, we've tried to dig as much as we could, but it sounds like, I don't know this definitively, but if the story we had on Tamari Fox, I think that we ran last week, there was some insight in there that Tamari had that gives you an idea of what these eligibility cases and appeal processes are like. And, Tamari, I would encourage everyone to read the Tamari story, because of, he laid it out there. He said that when he was appealing his season-long suspension for a banned substance, I wasn't sure what that even meant. I assumed it meant something like this, where you're on a Zoom or you're on some sort of Microsoft Teams thing, and you're talking to the president of the NCAA or someone who handles these cases. But Tamari was on a speakerphone, and he could not see anyone. He did not know who anyone was. He said very candidly in the story, it sounded like some people were driving home from work. It sounded like someone might have been shopping. And you can imagine how this would make the young man feel when this is his very life as a player hanging in the balance. I think we had him quoted as saying he just thought it was not the most professional thing. And Tamari said, now I'm sure cases are different in subtle ways, but Tamari said, he could not even tell them who he was. He had to present his appeal, his information. And then they heard that, and they said, by the way, they told Tamari, we'll get back to you in a week or two. And Tamari said they didn't hear for like a month. So, it sounds like UNC with Tez is simply trying to get an appeal hearing scheduled with the NCAA. So if that hasn't been scheduled yet, like what are the chances this thing gets scheduled, done, and resolved in the next 4 days? I don't know. Maybe it does. But it seems like, to go back to your question, John, it very well might not be resolved. He might be on the sidelines in Charlotte, not in uniform, because Max said we won't suit him up if he's not eligible. But they're gonna, like Max said yesterday, they're gonna take his shoulder pads, they're gonna take his uniform, they're gonna take his helmet. But I think that it's wild. I think that if you refer to that Tamari story, the behind the scenes aspects that he tells you about what they went through, it's sort of crazy to think about that. That's how they do business. So we'll see. As Jeremiah rightly pointed out in the story he wrote yesterday, that I think there is a glimmer of hope with the way the case worked out with the kid from Colorado, the Wilkerson running back, whose appeal was granted. But I think who knows? I think it might be a situation where Carolina plays 2 games and then Tess finds out. Carolina plays a game and then Tess finds out. I don't know. You would think that they would want to have this resolved before a season starts, but who knows with these people?
Yeah, and then just real quick, for what it's worth, Colorado had Wilkerson approved. They also had an offensive lineman whose waiver was denied as well. Right. So I just don't really know at this point.
Same team, but yeah. Right.
And maybe they got to Colorado first because Colorado is C and North Carolina is N. They're going alphabetically. I mean, no one has any idea at this point. I want to bring Evan in here. Evan, your take on press conference takeaways, maybe focusing on the defensive side of the ball. We heard from Gene Chizik yesterday. Did you have any takeaways from Gene Chizik's press conference?
Yeah, I mean, Gene is always a very candid guy, keeps it never too up, too down kind of a guy. Matt kind of talked about earlier this offseason how he's kind of picked on Gene a little bit, joked around with him, talked about how poor the defense was last year, and it's kind of put a real chip on Gene's shoulder. One of the big things they talked about, both Gene and Mac were talking about, the communication on the back end when it comes to both the defensive backs and the safeties, with Charlton Warren, I think Jason Jones, is that the correct name? Mm-hmm. 2 guys reuniting that were coaching together at Indiana and now together at North Carolina, and how that communication he's seen mass improvement in. Obviously last year, defense as a whole wasn't great for UNC, and I think a lot of people pointed at times to the secondary and the lack of coverage there. And then kind of just another thing to bounce off that, Matt kind of had a fun little 5-10 minute spiel there at the end, where he was pretty fired up just about the thought of playing South Carolina again. It's funny, Adam bringing up Tamari Fox. I think that was Tamari Fox's last game he played in was at Duke's Mayo Bowl in 2021.
He didn't play in that one. No,
he didn't play in that one. Oh, that was where he found out, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah, we were up there. We were up there, and the game's getting ready to kick off. I believe it was an 11 a.m. game on December 30th. So I'm not sure what kind of state everyone was in, but it was like a morning kickoff.
Right.
Beautiful December 30th morning in Charlotte. Not really, but I mean, literally like 5 minutes before kickoff, the word came through the press box like Tamari Fox will not be playing today. He's ineligible. So, you missed it by 1 game. That was Chris Brooks' last game, Evan.
Right. Yeah. And Mac was pretty fired up. I think, everyone remembers that game for the most part, with South Carolina running away with it 38-21. And Mac said something along the lines of he hates thinking about that game. He got rid of all his Duke Mayo Bowl gear from that game. He said he regrets the game right now when he just turned 72, and he says he's probably going to regret it when he's 82. So it's definitely something that you can tell he's fired up about, the opportunity to not only play the same team, but also the same team in the same building at Bank of America Stadium. And that is definitely sense of, I don't know if urgency is the right word, but just more of a chip on your shoulder. It's definitely passed down, especially on the defensive side of the ball with Gene Chizik.
We've talked a little bit about the defense. I want to go to Jeremiah and Adam here in terms of some injury updates. It's always hard to get rock solid information, especially the week of the game. There's been some talk out of South Carolina all of a sudden that all their guys who were right on the line, Juice Wells, Trey Knox, they're all healthy, good to go. I'll go to Jeremiah first on this one. What were some of the discussions about injured players, in particular, some of the guys in the secondary? What has UNC said about the status of Will Hardy, DeAndre Boykins, and what could you tell us?
Someone asked about Boykins during the press conference. I know Mac said they're going to kind of wait on him. They announced that freshman. I put this on the boards. They announced that freshman tight end Julian Randolph would be out for the year. But as far as some of those other guys, from camp, I know they were kind of in that day-to-day bubble for a little bit. They didn't say a ton about them on Monday, but. I mean, for what it's worth, it had been a few weeks since some of those guys were announced to be, kind of out for a little bit. But that's something to pay attention to. I know South Carolina. I was watching a little bit of their availabilities. I know they were banged up a little bit as well, but they're looking to be mostly healthy during that game. I was looking at their depth chart a little bit earlier, so it looked like really all those key guys. Kind of should be playing. And as far as UNC's offense as well, for the most part, we had seen that they were, that they were straight. But I mean, it's something to monitor. I mean, availability is, especially for that first week, as you're trying to figure your own team out, as you're trying to figure out, kind of what that identity is. You want to make sure that your personnel's out there. But yeah, that's pretty much, it wasn't a ton of, updates from Mac, but, something to monitor for sure.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say UNC made it through preseason camp relatively healthy. I think Lejon Cavezos was the main, perhaps, contributor who you could say
Yeah, legend. Yeah.
is not going to be able to play this early in the season. Is he out for the year? I believe.
No, 4 to
Okay.
6 weeks.
Okay.
4 to 6 weeks.
So
Yeah.
he's out early.
He's off crutches already.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, maybe the main contributor who won't be available for this first game. Adam, with all that in mind, some uncertain status in the secondary and at some other positions. This is a question from he who wears Carolina blue on the message boards. He asks, "Who do you think will have to step up and make a major contribution versus South Carolina, given the injuries the team is dealing with?" So you can take that based off of the injuries, or also just who do you think is going to step up against South Carolina?
It's a good question, and yeah, I think just to add to what Jeremiah was saying, I think we're gonna have to keep our eyes peeled in warm-ups, because they have been beaten up in some places, and they've gotten guys back to practice, but and camp is long. I mean, it is a never-ending journey. Sometimes it has to feel like, and we don't play. I can only imagine what it takes to be a big, tough football player who's also fast. But I think the opening game of a season, after a team has been through training camp, you always have to keep your eyes peeled during like pregame warm up, the binoculars up there ready to go with the Where's Waldo of who's moving okay and who's not moving okay. But yeah, I'm thinking your question was what? Who could step up and have a big game, or who Carolina needs to step up?
That's right.
I mean, I'll probably get a lot of flack. Tommy's not here, so I can say it. I'm going to say Kobe Paysor. Who knows? Tomorrow Tez Walker could be declared eligible, and the dude could go for 10 catches and 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. I'm sure that would be wonderful for the people in Tar Heel Blue. But yeah, I feel like Kobe might be one of these guys that sort of has been slept on with, the names like a Tez Walker and a Nate McCollum through the transfer portal that UNC is expecting big things out of. And, as Jeremiah mentioned, let's not forget the rapport that Drake has with Kobe. They seem to have a good connection. But, Carolina certainly doesn't lack for options at running back, at tight end. But I don't know. Maybe I'll go Kobe Paysor. I'm interested to see how it shakes out with the tight ends, because it sounds like, from all accounts, it sounds like John Copenhaver has had a great spring and a great summer and a great camp. And we think he'll be out there first. They could go 2 tight ends, and Kamari Morales and John Copenhaver could be out there. But, how do they use a talent like Bryson Nesbitt, who I'm looking at it right now, has slipped to sort of third on the depth chart? I don't think that means he's going to be riding the pine,
Right.
I just think that maybe they're going to be more selective in using Bryson Nesbitt. You would think in the red zone, the length, the stretchiness of a Bryson Nesbitt that, Drake has said, you throw it up to him, he'll go get it. So I think it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out there, how it shakes out with wideout, with the Tez situation. But I'm gonna my pick to click is gonna be Kobe Paysor, a little under the radar maybe.
I like it. We're coming up on the bottom of the hour here, so I have 2 questions for intern Evan before we do the ad read and we get to the second half of the show. First one, Evan, this is a rite of passage for all Inside Carolina staff members. How many sacks is Desmond Evans going to get this season?
Come on, man.
And is it over or under 10 sacks? That's the question.
Okay, well,
I'll take the under on the 10.
There we go. Easy one.
Is it 1 in his career or is it 0?
I believe it's 1.
Yes.
Is it 1?
Mm-hmm.
I think the number is 1 career sack for Des Evans.
Mm-hmm.
I think the question everybody was asking last year was over under 6.5 sacks for Des. Is that right?
Yeah, that was the number. And this, of course, goes back to Gregory Hall, who started off the On the Beat Live tradition. So we had to get that one in there.
Okay.
But, Evan, your real question, if you were picking this game, if you were going to give out your prediction for who wins and why, what's your take?
Man, put me on the spot early. Well, I just wrote I'm trying to think. I'll go North Carolina for this one. Kind of looking back on South Carolina, I know a lot of the hype surrounding this game is the quarterback battle with Drake May and Spencer Rattler. And just kind of going back through Rattler's season last year, obviously he ended it really, really well. Those last 3 games with the big win over, at the time, number 5 Tennessee, at Clemson, which was, I know, the first win in that rivalry game for South Carolina in some time, and then the close bowl loss to Notre Dame. He really came on strong there toward the end, but it's really hard to look past those first, I guess more than half of the season with him. I was kind of joking with Adam and Jeremiah the other day if you take out the Tennessee game where Rattler threw for over 400 yards and had 6 touchdowns and no picks, for every other game that last season, Rattler's touchdown to INT ratio was 12-12. So I don't know how much, I don't know if trust is the right word for it, but I don't know what Spencer Rattler is going to show up. And at the same time, I think most people are pretty confident that Drake May is more than likely going to get his in this game, just with the consistency he kind of showed last season. And I think it's funny to say this. I don't see a way that, I guess statistically they can't be. I can't see a way where UNC's defense is much worse than last year. And I think that they did a pretty good job in the portal to get some playmakers. I know Elijah Hussey has been a big talk. Funny you bring, Des Evans back up. Obviously he's coming back from a season-ending injury last year. I know Kamen Rucker, a lot of people are high on, and everyone, I guess not many people have talked about Miles Murphy, and Miles Murphy was banged up last year, and he looks to be healthy, and Kevin Hester up in the middle. So I expect the defense to do enough and to be, maybe slightly improved from last year to the point where they can help North Carolina get what would be a really big opening win this season.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Evan, for joining us for the first half of the show tonight. We'll be seeing Evan a lot this season. He'll be joining On the Beat Live. Make sure you're following him on Twitter as well and reading him on Inside Carolina. I'm going to jump in here and talk about Johnny T-Shirt and JohnnyT-Shirt.com. I feel like instead of doing the ad read myself, I'm just sort of repeating what I've memorized Tommy saying all these times, because Tommy has it down to a T.
Yes.
But we know it's back to school season. We know it's the start of a new football season. It's time to go get some new North Carolina gear. Important to support local businesses on Franklin Street as well. So head on down to Johnny T-Shirt. If you're out of town, you can also check out their website. They support Inside Carolina, so we have to do them a favor and help support them. You get a discount as well by using Inside Carolina code when you're checking out. So be sure to support them. We have 228 people watching us live here on YouTube, which is awesome for the first show of the season as I bring back up the on the beat background here. I named this show tonight The Big Picture because I think it's a nice opportunity here heading into Mack Brown's 5th season to take a step back, take a pause, and kind of understand how the program is doing so far. I think it's a good opportunity to do that before the season starts and sort of kind of take a step back. So I'm going to read off the records of UNC the last 4 years under Mack Brown. 7-6 going to the Military Bowl. It looks like 8-4 and the Orange Bowl, 6-7 and the Duke's Mayo Bowl. We already talked about that game tonight. And last year 9-5 in the Holiday Bowl. That's Mack Brown's body of work thus far. We're going to get into Mack Brown's job in his second stint here in Chapel Hill, how he's done. So we're going to sort of start the questions off a little easy, a little light, and then we'll kind of take the conversation from there. So for Jeremiah and for Adam, we're just going to start things off with the offseason, this past offseason. Knowing everything we know now that we have some more data about how good Elijah Huzzy is and maybe how tenuous UNC's situation is at left tackle, how would you grade the UNC football offseason? Adam, I'll start with you.
Well, Johnny, I couldn't help but think when you're reading off Mack's record, year-by-year records there, if Mack Brown himself, the birthday boy, was on this show, I guarantee you he would tell you after you had done that, all right, Johnny, now go read the records from before he got there. Because what was it, 2017, I think UNC was 3-8, and then 2018, they were 2-9. They won 5 games the 2 years before Mack got here. I think that's worth pointing out
100%
in the big picture. Also worth pointing out, I saw my guy Sean Crowley over here in the comments. Sean, that I don't know if I want to out whose phone that was. It was not mine. Older man type mistake that you would be right on with that. But yeah, you would think. I'm sure people have watched the press conference videos from yesterday. Yeah, I mean, a dude up. I just say I gave the gender. Dude's phone went off, and then it went off again. I mean, wouldn't you silence it after it's gone off once? Anyway, but no, Sean, that was not me. Okay, sorry for the diversion there, John. Rating their all season. I mean, I think in terms of like the transfer portal, I thought they did well in the transfer portal. I think they have a lot of the guys they brought in are going to help them. Now, I don't think you could have found Aaron Donald and Khalil Mack in the transfer portal in terms of beefing up the defensive line, or Tony Baselli. I'm trying to think of a great left tackle. Anthony Munoz. I'm dating myself. In the transfer portal. But I do think that a lot of the guys they added, and you can see it when you look at the new depth chart, that they're expecting these guys to play and contribute. So I think I would give UNC high marks for the offseason. I mean, I think that some of the guys, I mean, look at the way British Brooks has come back. That's a testament to British Brooks just being jacked and a superhuman physical freak. Dude's out there running around without a knee brace in the spring. Look at the way Tamari Fox has responded from the season-long suspension. I mean, he looks incredible. As strong as Tamari Fox is, he's 10 pounds stronger. And as he said, he's getting drug tested all the time now. But, I think that I would give him good marks. Now, how this is going to translate to this season, we will see. But I think short of, finding some game-changing pass rusher, which we'll see what Amari Gaynor can do with Kamen Rucker at Jack, the Thunder and Lightning at Jack. But I think they acquitted themselves well. I think they've had a good offseason. We'll see how it translates.
Jeremiah, what about for you?
Yeah. As far as a grade, I did go ahead and put a letter grade on it. I said a B. That is a good grade, ladies and gentlemen. That is a 3.0 translation. Don't get mad at me. Look, when I look at UNC, it looks like their running game improved. First of all, the fact that they kept all their running backs, I was actually very shocked that nobody entered the transfer portal just because of how crowded it was and how Mack was establishing early on. We want to kind of have two guys that we can just kind of go with.
Great point.
Which, based on the depth chart, that's going to be British Brooks and that's going to be Omarion Hampton as those, I guess, primary two guys. And they also have put a extra emphasis on that running game, kind of making it a collaborative effort between, all the different coaches, the tight end coaches, and the or Freddie Kitchens and Randy Clements, and obviously Larry Porter, who's the running back coach. So they're putting an emphasis on that, and they have talent in that room. That is a positive. And based on what Mack Brown was saying, they have gotten great production from Jacoby Cowan and Bo Atkinson. Those are guys that are kind of going to help bolster the defensive line depth. I think the defensive line depth on paper actually looks pretty good right now. I think that's a positive right now. You bring back Cedric Gray, who had the potential to leave. You bring back Corey Gaynor. Those are two important starters that you have. Your secondary starts fresh. You have a clean slate in that secondary. Obviously, Jason Jones is, kind of doing what he's doing out there, and they have high marks, high praise for him. Like Adam was talking about, you get Fox back, and then they did do well in the transfer portal. You bring in Elijah Huzzy, someone who they're excited about, Tez Walker and Nate McCollum, which I think is big considering that you just lost two wide receivers to the NFL. You bring in Amari Gaynor, you bring in Lampkin. Those are guys that are going to be starting for you this year. Why is it not an A plus, or whatever? It took a while, just based on what they were saying and based on some of what we saw. It's taking them a while to get that offensive line depth there. I think that's really crucial when you're playing Drake May again. You're expecting big things from him, and also just the running game in general. I remember Chip Lindsey. I'm not going to act like he said it was the end of the world. But he did say a few weeks ago that they weren't quite there yet with their offensive line depth. Now it sounds like obviously they've got a depth chart out there. They're going to kind of roll out week one. They know who their starters are, but we'll kind of see if they're going to be able to kind of get consistency from that unit. Now Des Evans and Travis Shaw have gotten some good reports from practice as well, from the training camp practices as well. But we will see kind of where their production kind of is at. Are they going to become the players that they were kind of brought in expectation wise? Are they going to kind of get to those expectations that people have kind of placed on them so far? The cornerback room, the secondary overall, like I said, does have a bit of a fresh start. It might not be as experienced as they would like it to be. That's not anybody's fault. That's just a matter of what they have out there. Marcus Allen had some big minutes last year, or had to play some really big snaps late last year. Huzzy is new. He's experienced in college football, but he's new to obviously this this system. I know he's been practicing with them since the spring, but nothing like playing a real game. So we'll see with that. Tayon Holloway, they're praising him a lot. Also a really young guy. So, you have the fresh start, but, you kind of have to see what that trio can do together. And another thing, they're still looking for that fourth linebacker. It sounded like, obviously, Amari Campbell was going to be the guy to kind of fill in for Cedric Gray, Power Echols. That was the thing last year. Those guys really had to play the whole game in a lot of cases, couldn't sub out as much as the coaching staff probably wanted them to. They're still kind of looking for that fourth linebacker. So, and then also, this is obviously, again, not a fault of UNC, but the Tez Walker thing is still up in the air. Will he play? Will he not be able to play? That does kind of impact what you want to be able to do. They're probably going the right direction as far as, Mack Brown said yesterday they have two different game plans. I think that's probably the smartest thing to do. Just be ready for whichever situation. Be ready if, they get off the bus in Charlotte and they get the call from the NCAA. We got to get the helmet from the bus. We got to get the jersey off the bus. We're going to have him ready to play no matter what. That's probably a good idea. So I'm going to go with a B, which is, like I said, that's a good offseason. That's probably what you want, coming off of a 9-win season. So I think they have a lot in the offseason that they should be happy about, but I definitely think there are some things that they need to be thinking about as we head into week one.
What an excellent answer from Jeremiah. My God. That was it's like presenting a term paper.
I love it.
It was a great answer.
I try.
Jeez, Jeremiah. Well, as I was listening to all those good points that I mean, one by one, he's just knocking them out. It sort of struck me. Yeah, like think about. Here's something I just was thinking about as I'm listening to Jeremiah talk. Think about Corey Gaynor, Cedric Gray, Ed Montillis. They're a bunch of British Brooks. They're guys that are going to be starting and playing for UNC that could have just moved on. I mean, Corey Gaynor is in his 7th year of college football. Cedric Gray could have gone to the NFL. Didn't like his draft grade, wanted a higher draft grade. As the coaches have said, wanted to come back and try to chase a championship. They're in terms of you thinking about offseason and addition and changes. I think it's important to point out that they kept some guys, in terms of not losing guys. Because you certainly could. I mean, that's a great point on the running backs. One of the running backs easily could have gotten in the transfer portal. Corey Gaynor could have said, "I'm going to move on with my life and not submit myself to a collision 80 times a game." And Cedric Gray could, he could go get paid and play NFL football. So I think those might be some little areas to think about. Ed Montillis was done with football for a few weeks, if not a month. And then I believe Mack walked in one day in January, February, and was like, Ed Montillis is coming back, and we're like, wow, okay. So I would just add that to Jeremiah's excellent, well-researched, well-thought-out answer.
I got some educators in my family, so I had to represent. They said, give a grade. I had to do my best.
I'm going to throw out one name as well that you all didn't mention in terms of when I think about offseason and upgrading the roster. Ryan Coe at the kicker position, I think, is a big one. That's one of those you don't think about that in the offseason, especially when you're playing the hypothetical games. But they're going to need a kicker starting Saturday night, and I think he is a major upgrade. I think that's a clear point where UNC got better this offseason. Adam?
I mean, here's the deal, John. If you go, I encourage people, go read through Ryan Coe's bio. Like, this dude has set kicking records. He's an all-conference level kicker at Cincinnati, which we know is a great football program. With that said, I don't know what the heck is going on, but the things that Jeremiah and I have heard around the practice is that UNC is a little disappointed with Ryan Coe and his consistency. Maybe Noah Burnett's in there too, because we've heard that they want more consistency out of the place kickers. I'm sure you do. You want them to make every kick. I jokingly said to someone the other day, is the ball different that he's kicking here in Chapel Hill than in Cincinnati, Ohio? It was maybe a Hoosiers Gene Hackman style, measure the rim before the state championship game reference there. So I don't know, man. Like, I totally agree with you that I thought that when they got Ryan Coe out of the portal, I was like, okay, well, this guy's the kicker for all 12, 13, 14 games. That issue is solved, particularly with the way Burnett ended last year. He was struggling. It's crazy with those kickers, how if the confidence goes or whatever goes mechanically, it's like a golfer. It's like if it goes, it goes. And it went the wrong way on Burnett there at the end of last year. But I don't know. Like, this is going to be an interesting situation to monitor with Ryan Coe, because I'm surprised that we have heard that they're not thrilled with the lack of consistency. Maybe it's just a preseason thing. I don't know. Maybe it's better when the lights come on.
I like what George says. Games is what matters with kickers. So we will find out very quickly, starting on Saturday night, whether Ryan Coe is up to the task or whether it's Noah Burnett. I want to transition to talk a little bit about this upcoming season, still talking about the big picture. And Adam, I got this question idea from your question at the press conference.
Oh, no.
When you asked Mack Brown about sort of how he approaches a season, knowing that he has a special quarterback in Drake May. So I'm going to kind of take that question and twist it a little bit, because I do think the dynamic coming into this season is very interesting. Mack Brown is looking for sort of that big statement with Drake May as his quarterback. But in the back of your mind, you also have to look at the reality of the situation. There's a chance Drake May doesn't play in the bowl game. So it's possible that what you need to get out of Drake May in terms of taking advantage of him comes in the 12-game regular season. Now, I'm not saying, obviously Sam Howell played in the bowl game. I'm not saying Drake will or won't play. We're a long way away from that, but I'm kind of thinking about that in the back of my mind. Jeremiah, I'll start with you on this one. Drake May is a once in a generation quarterback. He is a Heisman Trophy candidate. He is an elite quarterback. What does UNC have to do in order to take advantage of this season with Drake May on the field?
Well, on the field, I would say they need guys who are consistent on the outside. They need some guys that they know that they can trust pass catching wise. I think they have that. I actually think they have several guys that they're going to be able to get the ball to. Whether it's like I said, putting George Pettaway in that slot. I think that's another thing that I think went well for them. They found a role for Pettaway, kind of decluttered the running back room, so to speak. I think they have some really good tight ends just for the short stuff. We'll see what happens as far as Tez Walker and his availability, but you do have Nate McCullum, you do have Kobe Paysour. I think they're going to have some guys that you're going to be able to throw to, but I would throw that in there. You need to be able to block for him. You need to make sure that you give him time to throw. I know Mack has been talking about he's getting the ball out a little bit quicker, which is something that they want. Mack and Chip Lindsey have been talking about the fact that his footwork has improved, but you do want to be able to block for him. I think that's the moneymaker right there, literally. Like that is the guy that you need save, and that's the guy that's going to give you a chance in every game. What UNC should want, obviously, and I'm sure this is the goal for every ACC team, but they should want another shot at that ACC championship game. I do think Florida State and Clemson are better teams, but you got to think if this really is Drake May's last year. I know he teased at the ACC kickoff the idea of potentially staying. I mean, if the guy throws 40 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, I don't really see that happening. But you have to think this is last year, so you're going to want to try to do something that you haven't done since 1980. While you have him on the roster, because after he leaves, I mean, when is your next opportunity going to be to kind of win the conference? And one more thing I will say, and look, like I said, you have Drake May, you want to take your best shot. I wonder if beating Clemson should be on that wish list. You know what I mean? Like, while you have him here, just trying to take advantage of that time. When you look back at the quote unquote the Drake May years at UNC, what do you want to be able to say? Right now, you can say we had the 9-win season. That's the most since Mack Brown returned. He was 10th in Heisman voting. Man, I wish Greg Barnes. I wish I would have took note. He had the stat on the podcast the other day of, I think it was the highest finish for UNC football player since a long time, as far as a Heisman vote. But like I said, you want to be able to look back at the Drake May years and say, what did we get done? Can you put the Clemson win on that list? You can put an ACC championship appearance. You can put a Coastal Division title. But what can we kind of add to the years, or what we remember from the Drake May years? So I think those are some things that they should consider while they have a talent like that on the roster, and some pretty good pieces on that offense as well.
It's crazy to think about, as Jeremiah says, the Drake May years. We're talking about the Drake May era, and the guys started 1 year.
Yeah.
Like, what is it, August 29th? Well, I guess they played August 27th last year. I was going to say this time last year he hadn't started a game, but they did have the week 0 game. Yeah, the Drake May era. I mean, I think you have to try to savor. If you're a UNC football fan, and I enjoy covering Drake May, I think we all have to enjoy this. It's crazy I heard John, you're already predicting a bowl game for him, which I think is a solid prediction. But I don't know. I think Drake would play, and this guy's gonna probably be a first round draft pick. But I mean, yeah, we can sort that out in December, obviously. But like you said, Sam Howell played. Drake takes a lot of cues from Sam Howell. I mean, Drake has 3 older brothers, but Sam Howell is a big brother sort of figure for Drake. And he watched Sam sort of tough it out through that 6 and 7 years, Sam's final year. And I think he took a lot of notes on how Sam approached things and things of that nature. But um, I don't know. I don't know if we're supposed to give season predictions here, but I will throw it out. I've got UNC going 10-2, which
Nice.
I think I predicted 8-4 last year. 10-2 might be. What am I? I'm looking at through powdered blue glasses. I'm going to say 10-2. They won 9 games last year. And I think that's just what they've only won that amount of games twice now since Mack left the first time. Fedora had the one great year where they won 11 games, I think it was in 2015. But I'm going to say 10-2. I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm going to say they beat South Carolina 34-30 on Saturday night in Charlotte, North Carolina at Bank of America Stadium. The last time that these teams met, Shane Beamer was getting mayonnaise dumped over his head, as we very well know. But I'm going to say, yeah, and I do think that, oh, my goodness, yeah, beating Clemson would be sort of a mantelpiece type thing. But I am going to say in my 10-2 prediction that I have them losing at Clemson. I'm going to say that. I know that's not a very wild thing to say because everyone goes to Clemson and loses. I think it'll be very interesting to see how that FSU Clemson game goes early in the season in Death Valley. But that's what I've got. I've got 10-2. I'm going to say they beat South Carolina. I tell you, they get off to a fast start. I'm looking at that game at Pitt in the 4th week as a possible stumbling block because I just think Pitt is tough. But we'll see what happens.
And I think, Adam, that would be a record that would take advantage of potentially Drake May's final year. I think going 10-2, hitting that mark, I think that's an example of doing it. The number, we were talking a little bit about it. I believe it's basically since as long as I've been alive. In the last 25 years, UNC has had a 9 wins or greater season twice. I think the ACC championship in 2015 and last season. So I think taking advantage of Drake May looks like putting back-to-back 9-win seasons on the table. I think that would be a great example of doing that. Another one for me would be marquee moments. So Jeremiah, that's kind of the win against Clemson. That's kind of what I'm thinking about there. Like having a game where UNC goes into a hostile environment as a ranked opponent and really makes a mark on a national stage. I think that's a way to take advantage of Drake May. And I think for me as well, it's trying to find a way to end the season on a really strong note, a high note. Whether that's the regular season or whether it's the bowl game. But that's one of the kind of cool things about college football. There is one Super Bowl champion. There just is. There's one World Series champion. And, maybe in the professional leagues, there's a few teams that can talk themselves into, oh, we weren't trying to win this season. We were trying to be really bad, so we're on the upslope. But what's cool about college football is that you can have a successful season without winning the national championship because you can win your conference or you can win your bowl game, you can win your last game. So I think doing that, I think, is a way to take advantage of Drake May's last season. Mack Brown has had some highs in his second time around in Chapel Hill. I mean, obviously the Orange Bowl, the win over Miami in that COVID season, I think both of those count. Last season's win against Wake Forest and Winston-Salem is another high. I honestly think getting on College Game Day this week is a high. But I think winning the last game and kind of ending this season on a high note would be another notch under Mack Brown's belt in his second stint here in Chapel Hill. Jeremiah, before we get out of here, Adam already gave his predictions. Not to put you on the spot too much, but how are you thinking about UNC's record this season? And are you willing to go out there and even give a record prediction before we close tonight?
Yeah, my record prediction is going to be, and I said this, I don't remember, it was either last week or the week before, and a couple people were not super happy about it. My record prediction for UNC is 8-4. It's not as much on UNC. I just look at the team and I think it's a talented team. I think they got better in some areas. I think there were probably a few question marks in other areas. I don't know. Maybe it's just a gut feeling thing. I just kind of wonder, like, if something's missing. Like, I know the Tez Walker situation being up in the air, that impacts a lot. it's just so much is up in the air. Don't forget to add the playoff wins. We'll
George.
see. We shall see. We shall see. How about this? How about for 12 games? I'm gonna go 8-4.
Yeah.
Now if they go to now, here's the thing: they only have one ranked opponent on the schedule. That's Clemson. That's for right now. That's the only currently ranked opponent that they have. So I think if I'm wrong and they get more than 8 wins, that means that obviously Tez Walker played. It means that the defense stepped up in ways that you know we couldn't have predicted. I know that they feel good about it right now. I think really it means that they got a lot more sacks. They were able to control the clock a little bit better. But right now, as of August 29th, that's kind of where I'm leaning. I think there's 2 questions. Also, while I'm here, I just want to say really quickly, I did cover South Carolina last year, but I've kind of realized I'm not going to be able to please people because when I was at South Carolina, they were looking at me like, "Oh, this guy's a UNC graduate. He's biased. He's a Tar Heel, whatever." When I got back here, they were saying, he was just down there. He's been brainwashed, whatever. So I just want to say, currently, like, I try to shoot it straight, try to not be biased. I just kind of call how I see it. I know there's nothing I can do to limit any of that, but I just wanted to say that I know I'm probably not going to be able to avoid it. I might bring this up more than one time, but I just wanted to throw that out there while I quote unquote have the floor. But yeah.
House divided situation. Now, I mean, Jeremiah, you can't help that your first job was covering the Gamecocks. I mean,
I can't. I mean,
what we're supposed to be unbiased, and you're supposed to play it fair and everything. I think there's no doubt that you do. I mean, hey, some good-natured flack is always going to be a part of it.
It's all good. It's all good.
Always.
It's all love. Yeah.
Always. I mean, it's a good thing that people care. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was going to make one a couple notes before we got out of here, Johnny. Interestingly enough, or maybe not interestingly enough, I was thinking that Mack Brown's very first game as coach of the UNC Tar Heels was against South Carolina. I believe it was 1988 that they played South Carolina. And then for Mack 2.0, his very first game, as we all know, 2019, was against South Carolina in Charlotte. Some true freshman named Sam Howell started the game and led them on a fourth quarter comeback to win. So, I know the UNC South Carolina series or rivalry, if you want to call it, there's a lot of different connections, especially in basketball too, the Frank McGuire stuff from way back, but really dating myself there. But, Mack's first ever game as coach of Carolina was against South Carolina, and then Mack 2.0 started against South Carolina. So I've always thought that was kind of a neat little nugget to consider when you think about the Tar Heels and the Gamecocks.
I like it. We are coming up on the 10 o'clock hour here on the East Coast. If you're watching us live here on YouTube, thank you so much for watching. We had 241 visitors for the first show of the year, which is awesome. So thank you so much. I'm going to do a quick rundown of the show schedule this week. Sean Crowley, shout out to Sean. He's one of our most loyal viewers here. So I'm going to do a rundown for him and for everyone listening. I don't want to spoil it, but Taylor Vipolis has an amazing show coming out tomorrow. It's going straight to YouTube. It'll be all over the message boards as well. So keep an eye out for Taylor Vipolis' show with a special guest. I can't reveal who that special guest is, but it's going to be awesome. So keep an eye out for that football-focused show dropping tomorrow. Tomorrow evening at 9 p.m., we are doing the season predictions pod with the rest of the Beat crew other than Adam and Jeremiah, who gave their picks tonight. So we're looking forward to that show. Thursday is the game plan. So Tommy, the hardest working man at Inside Carolina, he'll be back. He'll be back. People were asking me. He'll be back on the Beat throughout the season. He'll be leading that show on Thursday night. And then Saturday, I believe they have a live show lined up from a construction site or vacant parking lot from Charlotte. So that'll be exciting. Adam and Jeremiah, are you both going to Charlotte?
Absolutely. I believe I was just looking. I believe it is Frothy Beard Brewing Company on Saturday, I believe is the spot for the IC pregame radio and tailgate. That's one we should encourage people. Stop by the IC tailgate and have some fun, hang out, play cornhole. I think you can. I think it's Frothy Beard. Someone Google it. I think it's Frothy Beard Brewing Company in Charlotte. It's on Graham Street, which is sort of right by the stadium. So that's something to keep in mind when you head down to Charlotte for Saturday. And yes, of course, Jeremiah and I will be down there. Looks like we're going to have blanket coverage, hopefully.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I love it. Well, I'm looking forward to reading what you all write about the game, looking forward to the game itself. We will be back next Tuesday to break it all down. It's gonna be an exciting show next Tuesday. There's only two things can happen. UNC can win and can lose. We'll break it down no matter which way it goes next week on the Beat Live. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll talk to you next week.